Intimacy. It's one of those words that carries both mystery and meaning. It's something we all crave, something that defines the depth of our relationships, something that makes us feel seen and connected. But have you ever wondered? Do men and women experience intimacy in the same way? Do they feel love, closeness, and vulnerability through the same lens? Or are we wired biologically, emotionally, even culturally to experience it differently? It's a question that touches the heart of human connection. Because when we misunderstand each other's way of feeling close, we often end up feeling distant. So many couples struggle not because they lack love, but because they express and experience intimacy in ways that the other person doesn't fully understand. What one person sees as closeness might feel completely different to the other. And that's where the real gap begins, not in the heart, but in perception. To understand this difference, we have to slow down and look at what intimacy really means. Most people think of it as physical closeness, touch, affection, sex. But intimacy is much more than that. It's the emotional glue that binds two people together. It's built on trust, vulnerability, and shared understanding. It's the quiet comfort of being fully yourself with someone and knowing they'll stay. Intimacy is less about the body and more about the feeling of being known. But here's where it gets interesting. Men and women often arrive at that feeling in very different ways. Let's begin with men. For many men, intimacy is closely tied to action, to doing, providing, protecting, or achieving. It's how they show love and seek connection. A man might not always use words to express how much he cares, but when he fixes something for you, when he helps, when he stays steady in a crisis, those are his ways of saying, "I'm here, I've got you." For him, love is often expressed through doing. It's through the tangible, practical acts that he feels most connected. Women, on the other hand, often experience intimacy through emotional openness, through words, through being seen, through shared vulnerability. For many women, intimacy is about being able to share feelings without judgment. It's about emotional presence, knowing that their partner isn't just there physically, but is emotionally tuned in, listening, empathizing, engaging. When a woman feels emotionally understood, her heart opens. For her, emotional connection is the gateway to all other forms of intimacy. Now, neither way is better or worse. They're just different. These differences come from a blend of biology, psychology, and culture. From a biological perspective, men and women's brains are wired differently when it comes to emotional processing. Studies show that women often have stronger connections between emotional and verbal centers in the brain, which means they naturally express feelings through conversation. Men, meanwhile, tend to process emotions more internally. Their emotional centers are less connected to verbal expression, so they may feel deeply but not always have the words to match. That doesn't mean they care less, it just means they experience emotion differently. Culturally, too, men and women have been taught different things about intimacy. Men are often raised to value independence, strength, and control. They're taught, often unconsciously, that vulnerability can be seen as weakness, so they learn to love in ways that protect them from that feeling. Women, meanwhile, are encouraged to nurture, to express, to connect. From an early age, they're socialized to build closeness through conversation, empathy, and care. So when two people come together in love, they bring these deeply ingrained habits with them. One may seek closeness through words, while the other seeks it through actions. This difference becomes most visible in relationships. A woman might say, "We don't talk anymore. I don't feel close." And the man might respond, "But we spend time together. I'm here, aren't I?" For him, being physically present, fixing things, or spending time in shared activities is a form of intimacy. But for her, without emotional sharing, it can feel empty. She needs words, feelings, and emotional transparency. She needs to feel emotionally seen. And when that doesn't happen, she can start to feel alone, even in the same room. From the man's perspective, however, the situation feels reversed. He might feel that he is showing love by doing things, working hard, providing stability, keeping the household running, solving problems. But if his efforts aren't recognized or appreciated, he may feel unvalued. He may think, "No matter what I do, it's never enough." That feeling of failure or rejection can make him withdraw emotionally, which then makes her feel even more distant. And so begins a cycle of misunderstanding, a dance where both people are trying to connect but missing each other's rhythm. The truth is, intimacy isn't one size fits all. It's a bridge that both partners must build together. For women, physical closeness often follows emotional closeness. For men, emotional closeness often follows physical connection. It's not a stereotype, it's a pattern seen across many relationships. A woman might need to feel emotionally secure before desiring touch, while a man might use touch as a way to feel emotionally close. When these needs collide, both can end up feeling unfulfilled. She might interpret his desire for sex as purely physical, while he might interpret her lack of interest as rejection. But in reality, both are longing for the same thing, connection, just through different pathways. The challenge then is to understand each other's language of intimacy. For men, that might mean learning to open up emotionally, to talk, to share, to be vulnerable even when it feels uncomfortable. For women, it might mean recognizing that men often express love through actions, not words, that I fixed it or I took care of it might be his way of saying, I love you. When both sides begin to value each other's ways of connecting, something powerful happens. The distance closes, the bond deepens, intimacy becomes more balanced, both emotional and physical, both verbal and unspoken. Let's explore what emotional intimacy looks like from each perspective. For many women, it means being able to share feelings without being judged or dismissed. It's about feeling heard and understood. When she opens her heart, she's not looking for solutions. She's looking for empathy. When she says, I had a hard day, she doesn't necessarily need advice. She needs acknowledgement. She needs her partner to say, that sounds tough. I'm here. That response tells her, you matter. I see you. And when she feels that emotional safety, desire often follows naturally. Her heart opens first, and her body follows. For men, emotional intimacy often grows out of shared experiences, doing things together, being on the same team, feeling respected and valued. When a man feels appreciated for what he does, when he feels trusted and admired, that appreciation opens his heart. It makes him feel safe to be vulnerable. When he hears, I love how hard you work, or I'm proud of you, he feels seen in his efforts. That emotional validation becomes the soil where passion and affection grow. He begins to open up not through words, but through presence. It's also important to recognize that men and women experience stress differently, and that affects intimacy too. When a woman is stressed, she often needs to talk it out. Talking helps her regulate emotion. When a man is stressed, he often needs space. He withdraws, not because he doesn't care, but because solitude helps him process. But if she interprets his silence as disinterest, she may push for connection at the exact moment he needs to pull back. And when he feels pressured to talk before he's ready, he shuts down even more. Both end up frustrated, not realizing they're coping in opposite ways. Understanding this difference, giving space when needed, and seeking closeness with patience can prevent countless misunderstandings. Over time, these patterns can either build a stronger relationship or quietly erode it. Couples who learn to bridge their differences, who make space for both kinds of intimacy, develop a deeper bond than either could create alone. When a woman begins to understand that her partner's quiet acts of care are his love language, and when a man begins to understand that her words and emotions are her way of seeking connection, they start to meet in the middle. They stop seeing difference as opposition and start seeing it as complement. They become two halves of a whole conversation about love. It's also fascinating to see how biology plays a role in how intimacy is felt. For women, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, surges through emotional connection, conversation, and touch. For men, oxytocin also rises with physical closeness, especially through sex and affectionate touch. So when a couple shares moments of connection, whether it's deep talk or loving touch, both are literally changing their brain chemistry. They're rewiring their sense of safety and belonging. But because men and women often enter intimacy through different doors, one emotional, one physical, it's crucial that both doors stay open. Sometimes the differences are subtle but significant. For example, when women express affection, they often use words and gestures of care. Be careful, I missed you, how was your day? Men, however, might express affection through humor, teasing, or protection. He might show love by fixing something, offering advice, or doing something practical. But if neither recognizes the other's expression as love, it can go unnoticed. She might think he's being distant. He might think she's being overly emotional. In truth, both are reaching out. They're just speaking different dialects of the same language. True intimacy, in the end, comes when both partners learn each other's dialects, when they realize that love can look different but still feel true, when they stop trying to change each other and start learning from each other. Because men can teach women the value of action, of showing love through steadiness and protection, and women can teach men the beauty of vulnerability, the strength of emotional expression. Together, those qualities create balance. They make love not just passionate, but resilient. It's worth noting, too, that intimacy evolves with time. In the beginning, it's all passion and discovery, but as years pass, intimacy deepens. It becomes about emotional trust, shared history, and small daily rituals of care. Men might show it through consistency, by being dependable, by showing up again and again. Women might show it through nurturing, by keeping emotional connection alive through conversation, through care, through attention. When both recognize the effort behind each act, love begins to feel whole again. But what happens when intimacy fades? Often, it's not because love is gone. It's because these differences have been misunderstood for too long. A woman feels emotionally unseen. A man feels unappreciated. Both retreat into their corners. But the good news is, it can be rebuilt, slowly, intentionally, by making space for each other's ways of connecting. By remembering that intimacy isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about always feeling the same. It's about understanding the difference. When a man opens up emotionally, even just a little, it can mean the world to his partner. It's not easy for him. It might go against everything he's been taught about strength. But that vulnerability is courage. It tells her, "You're my safe place." And when a woman expresses appreciation, when she sees and values his efforts, it gives him energy to keep giving, to keep showing up. That mutual understanding becomes the bridge where passion, respect, and tenderness meet. So perhaps the real question isn't whether men and women experience intimacy differently, but how we can learn to honor those differences. How can we meet each other halfway without losing ourselves in the process? Because intimacy at its core isn't about sameness. It's about connection across difference. It's about saying, I may not feel exactly what you feel, but I'm willing to understand you. I'm willing to learn how you love. Love is, after all, a translation. A man might say, I love you, by building something for you. A woman might say, I love you, by listening for hours. Each expression carries depth and meaning. But to truly experience intimacy, we have to hear those messages not through our own filters, but through the heart of the person giving them. And so maybe that's the secret. To not just love in your own way, but to love in a way that your partner understands, to step outside your comfort zone, to speak their language sometimes. When he starts to listen a little more, and when she starts to notice his efforts more, the whole rhythm of the relationship shifts. It softens, it deepens, it becomes a dance of giving and receiving, seeing and being seen. At the end of the day, both men and women long for the same thing, to feel connected, valued, and safe. They just travel different roads to get there. And when we stop trying to prove who's right and start learning how to walk both roads together, that's when true intimacy begins. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever stopped to notice how you show love and how your partner shows it back? Do you listen for their language of intimacy, or do you expect them to speak yours? When was the last time you asked what makes them feel close, or what helps them open up? And maybe the most important question of all, what would happen if, instead of trying to make them love like you do, you simply tried to understand how they already love? Because maybe the real magic of intimacy isn't in changing each other, but in learning to see love through the eyes of the person who gives it to you.